At the edge of a restless city, where the train tracks curved like questions into the hills, two young men met beneath a station clock that had not told the right time in years. One of them was named Elias. He carried a notebook in his coat pocket, filled with lists, places to see, books to read, trades to try, people to become. The other young man was named Tomas. He carried no notebook at all.
I have always known what I would become.
Always?
Since I was 7 years old, I knew I would be an architect. I drew houses before I could spell my own name. I built towers from books, bridges from spoons, cities from mud. A man is lucky when his purpose finds him young.
Or unlucky.
Unlucky?
To be found before you are ready to understand what has found you.
That sounds like something a man says when he has no direction.
And certainty sounds like something a man says when he has not yet been interrupted by life.
They might have disliked each other immediately, had the train arrived on time. But the train was delayed by 3 hours because a cow had wandered onto the eastern track and refused, with admirable confidence, to move.
Ladies and gentlemen, the train will be delayed until the animal has reconsidered its position.
So Elias and Tomas were forced into conversation. They walked out of the station and into the city market, where vendors shouted over one another, fish flashed silver on beds of ice, children chased pigeons, and an old woman sold oranges with the seriousness of a judge issuing sentences.
That roofline is wrong.
The blue house.
Yes. The weight is badly distributed. Beautiful, perhaps, but impractical.
Elias looked at the same house. In an upstairs window, a woman was teaching a little girl how to sew a yellow button onto a green sleeve.
I think it is doing its job.
A building's job is to stand.
No. That is only its first job.
And what is its second?
To hold what happens inside.
Tomas paused. He had not expected the wanderer to say something useful. They continued walking. At a fountain in the square, Elias stopped to watch a young violinist play for coins. The melody was imperfect, scratched in places, too fast in others, but there was something in it that made the afternoon feel larger than itself.
I once thought I might become a musician.
Can you play?
No.
Then why did you think that?
Because music made me want to live differently.
That is not a profession. That is a feeling.
Many professions begin as feelings.
And many feelings end as poverty.
You speak like a father with 3 daughters and a leaking roof.
I speak like a man who knows life is not endless. You cannot become everything.
No. But perhaps you must meet everything before you choose what is worth becoming.
They argued through the market, past bakeries and bookstalls, past a puppet show where a wooden king was being beaten by a wooden chicken, past a tailor who insisted every man was secretly 2 inches shorter. Tomas believed life was a structure. A person needed a foundation, walls, beams, and a roof. Without design, there was collapse. Elias believed life was a voyage. A person needed wind, curiosity, wrong turns, and strange harbors. Without movement, there was a different kind of collapse, the quiet kind, where no one notices the soul has folded in on itself. By late afternoon, they returned to the station and found the train still delayed.
The cow has now sat down.
The passengers had become a temporary civilization. A mother fed her children boiled eggs from a basket. A soldier slept against his bag. A priest played cards with a woman in red gloves and lost every round with holy dignity. Near the far end of the platform sat an old stranger beside a wooden crate. He wore a dark coat shiny at the elbows and held a cane carved with little stars. His beard was white, but his eyes were sharp and amused, as if he had been watching the world make the same mistakes for a very long time, and had decided to forgive it.
You two have been arguing since noon.
Discussing.
Ah, the polite word for arguing when no one has thrown bread yet.
We were discussing purpose.
Dangerous subject. Ruins dinners, ends friendships, starts religions. And what are your positions?
A man should know what he is meant to become. The earlier, the better. Discipline gives life shape.
And you?
A man should explore before choosing. The world is full of possible lives. To choose too soon is to betray the selves you never allowed to breathe.
The stranger leaned back and looked from one young man to the other.
Thomas, how could you ever know what you wanted to be before ever knowing what you also could have been?
Thomas opened his mouth, but no answer came. The question did not strike him like an insult. It struck him like a door opening in a house he thought he knew completely.
And Elias, how will you ever have time to be what you discover is you, if you spend your entire life searching through what others have already become?
Elias looked down. His notebook suddenly felt heavier. Around them, the platform noise softened. The card game, the children, the vendors, the distant complaint of the cow, all of it seemed to fade behind the two questions hanging in the air. Thomas looked at the station roof. He had always imagined himself as an architect, because the world made sense when he drew it. But had he loved buildings, or had he loved control? Had he chosen architecture, or had he chosen the first place he felt powerful? Elias looked at his notebook. He had always imagined himself free, because he refused to choose. But had he been exploring life, or hiding from commitment? Had he honored possibility, or worshipped it until it became another prison?
People speak of destiny as if it is a road. I have lived long enough to think it is more like a conversation. You answer, life answers back. You answer again.
The stranger lifted his crate.
What is in there?
Clocks.
Are you a clockmaker?
I was.
And now?
Now I am late for a train.
With that, he walked toward the far end of the platform and disappeared into the crowd. A whistle sounded in the distance. The cow, it seemed, had finally discovered ambition.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Eastern train is now arriving.
The passengers gathered themselves. Bags were lifted. Children were counted. The priest tried to win back one last coin and failed. Elias and Thomas stood together beneath the broken station clock.
When I was a boy, I wanted to build the tallest tower in the country.
That sounds noble.
It was not noble. I wanted everyone to look up and know I had made something they could not ignore.
That is honest.
And you?
Elias removed the notebook from his coat. He flipped through the pages. Sailor, sculptor, doctor, monk, poet, merchant, farmer.
I think I have been collecting lives because I was afraid one life would not be enough.
One life is not enough, but it is what we get.
That is the most frightening thing anyone has said to me today.
It should be.
The train pulled into the station, with a scream of brakes and a sigh of steam. Doors opened, people climbed aboard, each carrying some private weather inside them.
Where are you headed?
The coast.
To become a sailor?
To see if I still want to, after smelling the docks.
That may be wisdom.
And you.
The capital. There's an academy there. Architecture.
Thomas hesitated.
But perhaps I will visit the theater first, and the hospital, and the old bridge district.
Careful. You may become interesting.
And you may become useful.
They sat across from each other as the train began to move. Outside the window, the city loosened into fields. The station disappeared behind them, along with the broken clock, the market, the fountain, and the stranger with his crate of clocks. But the questions remained. How can you know what you want before knowing what you could have been? How can you become anything at all if you never stop searching? Years later, Elias would not become a sailor, though he would learn to tie 3 excellent knots and develop a lifelong hatred of gulls. He would become a writer, not because he had seen everything, but because he finally understood that seeing was not the same as becoming. Thomas would become an architect, though not the kind who built towers to be admired from below. He would design schools, libraries, shelters, and homes with wide windows, buildings whose first job was to stand, and whose second job was to hold what happens inside. They wrote to each other sometimes. Elias's letters were long and wandering. Thomas's were short and carefully structured. Both improved over time, and neither man ever discovered the old stranger's name, but each carried his questions like a hidden compass. Because every person, whether certain or searching, eventually reaches the same platform. One train is leaving, another has already gone, a third may never come, and somewhere inside the noise of ordinary life, a voice asks, are you choosing because you know yourself? Or are you waiting because you are afraid to become one thing and lose the rest?